Okay.
You ready for this intro?
Nope, but let's do it anyway.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Nerdy Psychologist Book Club.
Get ready to explore the psychology behind the magic and the mind games in your favorite YA novels.
I'm Brandi Hawk, a trauma psychologist and proud book nerd.
And I'm Deanna Boys and fellow book nerd.
Let's discuss our favorite heroes and villains, why they do what they do, and what that means for us.
Welcome to the club.
Today, we're so excited to welcome our friend, Dr. Brandi Liles.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Brandi Liles, occasional guest on the Nerdy Psychologist Book Club. I join book clubs to have drinks and be with friends and sometimes get through the books. So you rigid book club goers, please don't come for me too hard.
So, little overview of our podcast. We will read one book per month. We'll have one 30-minute episode per week that discusses a different character in the book. We'll always let you know in advance what our next month's book is so that you can get it and read along with us. Deanna, will you tell us a little bit about this month's book?
We are reading Sunrise and the Reaping. And if you are familiar with Suzanne Collins, she wrote another lovely series called The Hunger Games, or the Hunger Games series or trilogy. There are 3 books in that one, and that covers Katniss Everdeen, and you meet the main character, Haymitch Abernathy, also as an older gentleman in that series. And then in this series, we are kind of like rewinding back about 24 years in the same kind of like universe. It's called Panem. And he is a 16-year-old. And in that universe, in this dystopian world of the future or whatever side place, there was a big uprising that caused major issues within the whole kind of like what is they consider as the United States. And there is a capital that is in charge of kind of everybody, and then there's 12 districts. And within these 12 districts, each year there is a thing called the Hunger Games. And with the Hunger Games, the Hunger Games are a terrifying, awful spectacle put on for basically the elite of the capital, but also as a reminder and as a kind of like deterrent for any kind of other uprising, because it's a bloodbath and all of the kids are what is called reaped for this spectacle every year. There's usually one boy and one girl. And in this particular book, it is what's called the Quarter Quell. So it just means it's special. It's 50 years of this awful, what's it called, tradition of basically sending children off to be murdered by each other for fun.
Use.
Well, that
For
sounds
fun.
horrible.
Yeah, so it's horrible. It's a sad book that gives me nightmares, and I love it. Also, yeah, I also
Yes.
love it. But we're following Haymitch as he gets to. I shouldn't have said it like that, but as he is reaped and taken off to the Hunger Games, and we get to learn a little bit about him and the rest of the characters. So that's a longer synopsis I meant to do, but I think it sets us up really well to jump into the conversation about the Capitol and specifically the president.
Oh, president.
Yeah, there is a awful president. There's enough president. The character of President Snow. So if you're familiar with the series, you know who President Snow is.
Boo.
I know, boo. And I don't think we've even actually talked about like our different outfits today and who we're representing.
Which team are you on today,
I'm not on this team. But no, you are in black. And tell me why you're in black. Tell me more about that.
I am in black because District 12 wears black. And so in solidarity with District 12, including Haymitch, I am wearing all black today. But also because I love our friend Ampert from District 3, I've got some nice electric blue on as well.
I love
what
your
you're
outfit.
wearing.
It's so cute. But I do have on my toes, but nothing for free, everyone. Don't be looking. But I do have black on my toes for District 12. And then I am wearing white for President Snow and his what's it called? Like tagline, or what he kind of talks about himself is snow always ends up on top.
Ooh.
I know, right?
It's so creepy.
It's so creepy. But I am wearing white for that. So but before we jump in to talking about President Snow, I have a fun cocktail for us.
Ooh.
It is called the Poison Remedy. So if you know anything about President Snow, and if you know anything about his character and what he does, he's a poisoner. He poisons people. That's just what he does. That's how he gets rid of his political rivals or anybody he doesn't like. But in a way to lull them into a sense of security, he also takes the poison. And the remedy for his particular poison is milk. So we are going to be drinking a milk-based cocktail, and not a real milk-based, like a lactose-free milk-based, because we all are.
Jill's stomachs are sensitive.
We can't handle it. We are going to drink our drinks. So everyone, look at our beautiful glasses. Cheers. Beautiful. And if you are interested in the recipe, it will be on our Patreon.
That is delicious.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, it really is though.
I love
A little
that
nice poison
so
remedy.
much.
Yeah. But I thought that'd be a good place for us to talk about, President Snow and his weird ways. Problematic behaviors.
I mean, he's pretty problematic, right?
Yeah.
So when we think about President Snow and Haymitch specifically, we're talking about these two people who are in a relationship, right? Anytime that you have interactions with someone, you're in a relationship with them. And most relationships, or healthy relationships, have equal power between both people. That either means you share power on everything, or you split up responsibilities and have equal responsibilities. But in abusive relationships, which I'm going to say President Snow, abusive relationship,
Just a bit.
that is not true. And we see power and control dynamics at play. So, Dr. Liles, would you tell us a little bit about power and control?
Sure. So power and control, there's a lot of different ways that people can show up with power and control. And as you mentioned, like power and control is also just part of relationships. So in typical healthy relationships, everybody shares power, right? There's shared power, there's shared control. And, some person might contribute in this way and the other person contributes in that way. And there's also conversations around what power or control one person is going to have over the other. In abusive relationships, as you were mentioning, that is evident in the one between President Snow and Haymitch, is one person hoards all of the power. And they can have certain types of behaviors that then will basically coerce someone to stay in the relationship for survival reasons, and then also keep them complying for survival reasons. But oftentimes in, real life, this can get very confusing of why do people stay in abusive relationships? And coercive control and power and control has a lot to do with why people may stay in a relationship that's dangerous or unhealthy for them.
Or that it's like the president,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard when he's the most powerful person in the world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why doesn't Haymitch just say no and run away?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the president. So can you tell us, let's start with one. What's one of the most common things you see?
Sure. So I'm going to start with isolation. And so isolation is one behavior in the coercive control types of behaviors that perpetrators often have. And this is... So isolation in sort of two different ways. So it's isolation from family, friends, people who share your values. Getting you separated from those people can then make it easier for you to believe or go along or comply with the perpetrator's values, right? And so one of them is literal physical isolation. I'm going to isolate you from the people that you care about, from the people who have helped you develop into who you are.
I mean, that's like literally the entire premise
Yeah.
of the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
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 They take kids from the districts, remove them from everyone that they know, and plop them in the Capitol, and then tell them to fight to the death.
Yeah. Yeah. So physical isolation, huge. The other thing that I'm interested in your perspective of how this shows up in the book is isolation from what we call like the typical trajectory. So what your life might look like if you weren't in this coercive control environment.
Interesting.
Right? And so thinking about, I work with a lot of youth and young adults who've been sexually exploited or trafficked. And so they get coerced into this situation, and then they get separated or isolated from going to high school, being on the soccer team, being in community, being in like a typical neighborhood type of, situation. And so it's isolating them from what would be the typical developmental appropriate behaviors or experiences a person has. And the real problem related to that is that even if they're removed from the trafficking experience and then plopped back into their typical trajectory, developmentally appropriate environment, they feel like they don't belong.
They also just got treated specially, and they got to have all these fun new things.
Yeah.
And they were told they were special.
Yeah. Does this show up in this book?
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, so first of all, like we said, right, the Hunger Games takes him out of his entire community, right? But in being at the Hunger Games, he assumed he was going to die, right? So he's setting up his whole life that I'm not going to be here after this situation.
Yeah.
And then what you talked about, he was plopped back in home after he wins. And how are you supposed to even handle that? How are you supposed to deal with any of that?
Yeah. And it just makes me think about like how one of the things that they used to do. So in the Hunger Games series, there's a songbird and the snakes. And they're not treated so nicely, the tributes themselves. They are put in cattle cars. And it's mentioned in the book a few times, like, oh, well, we don't care really about you. But they realize that it actually, like the Capitol realized, oh, we need to like show that we're, to like kind of like the power and control dynamic, like, oh, we have to maintain control, we have to show some kind of like
Give a
decency, yeah, some give. Like it's kind of like someone like, okay, well, you can have a cell phone for now.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up because this is another concept that comes up in power and control relationships. We call it occasional indulgences. And so it's like you get a little bit.
Yeah.
And you get something that might feel like, I'm thinking about Hunger Games and some of what I read of Sunrise on the Reaping of the outfits and the fame and the,
makeup,
like the glory and the
showers.
makeup and all of this special attention that's coming. And specifically, perpetrators of power and control will do these occasional indulgences right after a particularly traumatizing experience.
Like the reaping, and then they're getting on this fancy car, this
And
fancy
they have
like
food
train car
that they don't usually have access
Yes.
to, right? And then eventually clothing that they don't usually have access to, and some of this, like attention that they typically don't have access to.
And it's like they're Haymitch has a birthday on the train, and they make him this beautiful cake, this like lovely cake, and they're like, yeah, why aren't you eating it? And he's like, normally they don't actually eat cake for his birthday, but it's just like this indulgent that's like you obviously need this, like, and he rejected it. And it's very implied, and with President Snow in general, is that he is in the book so very little, but he has this omnipresent feeling that like some of these things are personally decided that he does these things, especially because it is the Hunger Games is how he maintains control over all these districts.
So that brings up another power and control tactic demonstrating omnipotence. And so this is a dystopian fiction novel. So obviously there's a lot of omnipotence that is cameras on the arena all of the time, right? Like people are being watched. What happens in real life is like perpetrators will build this sense of, I know what you're doing. I know where you are. And obviously there's some technology and stuff that can be used to, like support this idea. But then it builds within victims and survivors that they're always going to know They have eyes everywhere.
And that is so true.
Well, and that, I mean, you see that, right? You brought up the arena, right? There's cameras on all the time, obviously. But before the arena, Haymitch sees that omnipotence where he's talking to President Snow, and President Snow brings up Haymitch's girlfriend, Lenore Dove. He doesn't know who she is, but he brings up, like, what's her name, right?
Yeah.
Because he sees Haymitch's flint striker. And he knows that was made by a covey. And so he shows this omnipotence of, I know more about you than you think I do.
Yeah.
And not that we need to like sell anything for Suzanne Collins or anything, but Songbird and Snakes, Ballad of Songbird and Snakes is a good one to read or to watch, whichever one you feel like. She was part of both. But you'll get an understanding of what covey means. Covey kind of translates into the people, right? Like I would say that's like the people who are kind of nomadic. So when the capital split into the districts, they didn't actually align right away until they had to, until they were completely destroyed.
Yeah, like traveling musicians, basically.
Yeah. Which that sort of gets into using loved ones.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so whether that's threats to loved ones, whether that's I'm going to harm them, whether that's you're never going to see them again, which then also like the threats turn into action. Like I'm actually harming loved ones because you're not complying, because you're rebelling, because you're trying to get away from this situation.
Okay, so I'm a nerd, right?
Please
so
continue.
I want to thank you. I want to draw you to page 108 where this comes up, right? So this actually isn't about Haymitch, but is showing Snow's control over all of his people. So Haymitch meets somebody named Beatty in the area where he's learning how to fight, learning how to do all these different things. And he goes up to Beatty and he's confused because one of the other tributes named Ampert says that Beatty is his father. And so Haymitch asks, you're Ampert's father? And he says, I am. And no doubt you're wondering why I'm here, Haymitch. Beatty removes his glasses and polishes them on his shirt. It's because I'm being punished for coming up with a plan to sabotage the capital's communication system. I'm too valuable to kill, but my son is disposable.
Yeah.
Can I just talk about how, okay, sorry, I'm going to like be a little nerd, like full nerd or anything. But
Please.
like, just like with the books and too, like, okay, so we know, and I know this isn't in the book, but we know in Hunger Games, there's a plot to bring down the Capitol through the Hunger Games books. I did not realize how far back it went.
No,
and how
I had no
deep
idea.
it went. I had no idea. Like, I mean, I knew there was a mention of it in the Hunger Games trilogy about Beatty when he does break the code and breaks into the system. He's like, I made this for them. So it's interesting that he gained back their trust at some point, was able to make the system, or it's an old system. I don't know. But like this, the resilience and the kind of like the rebellion has been going on for so long. I did not know. I kind of thought it had started back up. So anyway. That's
Yeah, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah.
So interesting you say that too, because it's like once you're under the umbrella of coercive control or psychological coercion, it can take a long time
Such a good point.
to chip away at some of those, you know, again, that behavior, information, emotions, spirituality, humanity, all of the things that the perpetrators kind of break down, or the system or society or whatever, right? They break that down, and then you lose touch with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when you're thinking about like healing from that experience, it's about getting back in touch with it. But first you have to chip away at all of the thoughts and the information and the behaviors that you have learned from being under this coercive control. And so when you're talking about the Hunger Games and how long from Haymitch's experience before it took to take down some of the system, I mean, it was decades.
24 years.
Yeah,
Well,
24
25
years.
until they finally succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
25
And
years.
I'm, you know, like there was, I guess, probably something, there must have been something in between the 10th and the 25th.
Oh, for sure.
Or the 50th, or the 10th, the 25th, and the 50th. There had to be something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And if you think about real life, especially like when you get some of this coercive control as like a young person, when your value system and your humanity is still developing, and same with like the tributes who are all children.
Yep.
That also shapes, again, sort of who you are and who you believe you are without really getting that opportunity to like develop and explore who you are without all of this trauma and coercive control. So it can take a long time kind of chip away at that, which is why we need to have like compassion and grace for people who are kind of stuck in some of these coercive relationships, because all of it does in our brain to be able to keep us stuck. And we are all susceptible to psychological coercion and coercive control, right? And so like this is, again, it's just the way our humanity sort of survives when there's no other way out of this situation. We do start to sort of form and believe and hold on to some of the things that the person who's trying to harm us is telling us about ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense for why it took Haymitch 25 years after this to stand up and be part of the rebellion. Like he was there in the rebellion.
Yeah.
This whole story is about how he was the rebellion. And then Snow comes in and says, nope, I'm in control, and quashes that in him for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there other things that we should be looking for?
Yeah, so one of the things I think that's linked a lot with our basic needs and our survival responses too is this idea of like induced debility. And so I'm going to like remove your basic needs. You can't sleep or eat unless it's under my control. Right? You can't make connections unless it's under my control. Like all of the things that, right? So food, security, shelter, safety needs, security, feeling secure and safe in our environments, and love and belongingness. If someone can control those things, then you have an induced debility to non-comply. So you may want to. This may all be maybe very misaligned from your values. But if I haven't eaten for days or I haven't slept for days, my physiological response is going to be like, it's going to be minimized in a way that I can't non-comply or rebel in the way I might want to when it's aligned with if it's aligned with my values, because I just don't have the physiological needs met in order to do so.
I mean, that's the arena. Right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, nail on the head.
Literally called the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you try to rebel and say, like, well, I'm not going to kill people, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to stay here, you will die from hunger.
Die from hunger or exposure
Or mutts.
Or mutts. Like, if you're taking too long. Yeah, that's a good point.
And so then you can see how, like, then the person's behaviors have to shift. They have to shift in order to continue to survive.
Talk about the Haymitch and President Snow scene.
Oh, yes. So Haymitch and President Snow have a few scenes together. Which one? Are you talking about the first or the second?
The first.
Okay. So in the first scene, I want you to tell us what this sounds like to you. Right. Actually, I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna read it to you.
Yeah, take a drink.
Okay. Page 7.
Fall out
This way towards my mouth.
I'm gonna let you take a drink until okay. So I'm gonna take us to page 79. So the tributes have to do this really weird chariot ride where they're put on display.
Okay,
It's
yes, I read this part.
super creepy, right? And Llewellyn dies during this.
Llewellyn McCoy.
Llewellyn McCoy. Oh my goodness.
I know. You've had a drink. It's fine.
Sorry.
Cut. Go again.
Can we cut that out?
We might keep that, actually. That's actually a good little line there.
Okay, so they've had this chariot display, and Luella dies during that time. And Haymitch says...
He tries to save her.
He tries to save her, and then he says, like, no, President Snow's going to pay for this. And so he brings Luella, and he goes, and he, like, finishes the chariot ride, and he stands in front of President Snow to be like, what are you going to do about it, dude, right?
Claps. He claps.
Right?
Like, great job.
The horses come to a stop directly under the balcony. I look up and freeze, too intimidated to breathe. President Snow, not on a screen, but in the flesh, the most powerful and therefore the most brutal person in Panem. He stands calm and erect, surveying the calamity of the opening ceremony. His head dips slightly, and a lacquered, silvery blonde curl falls onto his forehead. Our eyes meet, and a smile plays on his lips. No anger, no outrage, and certainly no fear. I have not impressed him with my performance. The reckless mountain boy with the dead girl in his arms seems foolish, a trifle amusing, and nothing more.
Ugh.
That's so sad. What comes up for me is like controlling emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about like the perpetrator in this situation, Snow, he may be having emotions, maybe not, maybe yes, right? But he is not displaying those emotions. And he's making it seem like your emotions are irrational.
You're the crazy one.
Like,
Yeah.
why are you being
Yeah.
so intense?
Oh,
I've literally never heard that in my life.
It's up so much in relationships, right? Sometimes it's called like stonewalling.
yes.
And so then it's like that person is having no reaction to this very, very intense situation. And because, again, all of the psychological coercion tactics have started to plant in your brain, then you're looking at this person who's the person in power, and you're saying, oh, well, why am I reacting this way? And even if you feel like your emotions are totally valid, your behaviors related to those emotions are either punished, ignored, or invalidated. Yeah. And then when that happens over and over and over time, you start to question what your emotional system, like what your own self is telling you about how intense or emotional or, a situation is.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It just feels like Haymitch was coming and he's like feeling not pride necessarily, but like a little bit of like vindictiveness of like, I'm coming, like you're going to have to see this.
Right.
But
Well, it was
President
just
was
like
like,
behavior
"Meh."
it was behavior that was aligned with his values, right? Like my friend died and I'm going to make someone else suffer because of this. I'm going to make this be seen and be heard. But then it was ignored and validated. And didn't they like cut the cameras? And so
Absolutely.
like,
No one saw it.
No one saw
No
it
one saw
except for a
it.
couple Capitol onlookers and President
Yeah.
Snow.
Again,
And he was punished for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to like the relationships that we see in our life and coming with compassion and empathy is like we also don't see some of the acts of rebellion that a person might be doing
that's such a good
over
point.
time.
Such a
We
good
just
point.
see the overcompliance. And so again, we're like, what the fuck? Why aren't you leaving this? This is dangerous. This is harmful for you. But we don't see all of the psychological coercion and the acts of rebellion that are value congruent that have shown up because those aren't publicized.
It's like a DV relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you, so you
Domestic
use,
violence for people who don't use acronyms.
Yeah.
good call. We use too many acronyms.
Yeah.
So we kind of started talking about this already, but I want to talk about how the Capitol changes the story. So this happens
Such a good point. Oh,
over and over, right? So
Yeah.
there's multiple moments, right?
Yeah.
So we started talking about during the opening ceremony how he does all this stuff, brings Luella in front of President Snow, and they just cut the cameras. No one saw that. But then even afterwards, so after the games are complete, he's sitting there at the victor's ceremony and watching a recap of the games, and Haymitch is thinking, this is out of order.
yeah.
Does no one remember? Did they not show this during the games? Or have people just totally forgotten
They
what
just
happened?
accepted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because the capital is President Snow, right? Is ultimately in charge of the narrative. So how does that work?
Like changing the narrative is huge,
Yes.
right? And then if I can get other people to believe the narrative, then the victim survivor is sort of left on an island by themselves where they're sort of remember the facts of the situation. The facts of the situation has been so minimized that
Like-
then, like
so good. And it's just like such a not to get political, but like it's just such so prescient, like so like what we're dealing with in the real world.
Yeah. Where it's like, this happens all the time. It's no big deal. Why are you freaking out about this
Right.
type
Like,
of situation? And then the changing the narrative where then people don't actually see the facts, right? So there's kind of two different avenues. Like you can see the facts and it's like, this is not that big of a deal. Nobody else is freaking out. Why are you so upset about this? But then also you can just remove facts from the narrative.
Yeah.
And then people are trying to make sense of the situation based on the facts that they're seeing, but they're not seeing all of the facts. And so then they see someone's reaction to the actual facts, and they'd be like, why is this person reacting this way?
absolutely.
This seems too intense.
They took out everything
Yeah.
about Haymitch trying to, or actively, not even trying, like he did blow up the water tank.
Yeah.
There was so much happening in the arena.
Did actually happen.
Things went dark. Like it
Yeah.
literally happened, and it was nowhere on that recap.
So that's even like minimizing the rebellion. So even though there was some effective rebellion, it was minimized to the public so that then they didn't see the rebellion. And so then again, it kind of just keeps everyone in line. It keeps everyone in compliance.
And what does it do to Haymitch?
I mean, it's so confusing. Like, I think for victim survivors, right? Like, it's just such a confusing experience to try to make sense of what you remember about the facts of the situation.
Your brain will do mental gymnastics to fix it. Too.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think a little bit later on, y'all are going to talk about cognitive dissonance and how that like
Yes.
plays a role, which I think is that's huge in psychological coercion too.
And for Haymitch specifically, right? Like anyone that could have corroborated his experience is
Was
now
dead.
literally dead.
Yeah, literally dead.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
They were all taken away.
Yeah.
We laugh, but it's so sad.
I know it's,
so
terrible.
sad.
Oh my gosh, side note, right? Like reading the books is one thing. I still remember the day that I saw the first Hunger Games movie and I was like, "Oh, it's different to watch children kill each other."
Yeah.
This is
You know what's
different.
interesting is that you had that reaction. Other people didn't.
I
And other people don't.
Like people got obsessive with the actual games themselves.
It became Team Gale and Team PETA. Like
Yeah.
the marketing was weird.
Yeah.
You
no,
know,
for sure.
and like what people took away from it, like, oh, who are you? And I remember talking to someone about that, and I'd being like, I guess I'm Team Gale. I don't know.
I mean, that's
I had-
incorrect. That's not. That's
It's
like,
incorrect.
That's
It was incorrect. I hadn't read
That's
the book
incorrect.
yet. No, I'm not. I'm Team PETA.
Okay, good.
But,
Like,
but
I don't
listen-
know if we
but
can even be
listen-
friends anymore.
Listen to y'all right now, right? Like that's also what psychological coercion does. Is it like
Stop
puts
it.
people on sides,
Yes.
right? And so it's like I have to pick a side, good side, bad side, whatever,
Oh, that's
right?
such a good point.
And that again, like then us going into these boxes. You mentioned sort of political. I know we don't want to get too political, but like thinking about being in those boxes then makes us like conform to, I mean, in psychology world, we call it group think, right?
Yeah.
So it's like then you start to think and behave and feel more like the box that you're put in. And then you can't see the other box as humans.
Ooh,
Oh,
okay.
Such a good point.
So, so to take this a step further, right? Literally no one is Team Snow. Or, I mean, I guess if they are
No, I'm just kidding.
Deanna.
She is not Team Snow.
I'm
y'all.
not Team Snow. I promise.
She's not Team Snow.
She would not be invited if she was.
But I mean, I suppose like maybe
Yeah.
there's people who are Team Snow, but like in general, like no one's Team Snow. He's clearly the bad guy. We all hate him, right? He's the one in control. And yet, like you're talking about, we're put in these boxes of like team this person or team this person. Like even in this book, right? Like team I want Haymitch to live versus like, oh, why isn't Ampert the one that won, right?
I know. I
Yeah,
did actually
yeah,
know.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
I hope they got him away before I read the book, and I was
I
like,
know.
oh, of course you can't.
But of course you can't. Right. And so like, is that part of power and control too, that the person in power actually takes themselves out of the box equation? So we're so busy fighting with each other that we don't think
such
about
a good
them.
point. Such a good
Well,
question.
Yeah, when you were saying that, I was thinking about like Snow in the games.
Mm-hmm.
And the games are Snow.
I mean, like it is an extension. Like he has end control. Like
Absolute.
the game
Right.
maker sets it up, and then he goes, I don't want this, I want this kind of a
Right,
thing.
but who controls the game maker?
President Snow
President Snow.
literally kills them.
And so even like putting himself at a distance from like, oh, I'm not the games. But he literally is the games.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then I think that it's another sort of deflection or like watering down of the power and control behaviors from the actual perpetrator themselves. But it is a person or a system or a society or whatever.
Hate
that
the
is
player, don't hate the game.
Yeah.
But
Or
actually
hate the
also
game, you don't hate the player, I mean. I've had a drink.
But also
Hate
maybe
the game,
both.
don't play-
yeah. Yeah.
But we should be hating the player and the game, both.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah. And typically though, the player, if you're thinking about in this terms of the tributes, right, is they are in this coercive cycle over, I mean, intergenerational ancestral trauma cycles
Yeah.
that they don't have much choice. Like coercion isn't consent. And so even if someone's saying, yes, 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 me, pick me, right? Usually for survival reasons, or if you're thinking about Katniss later in the series to protect like younger, more vulnerable people, it's still a decision that is surrounded in the umbrella of coercive control. And if coercive control exists, consent cannot exist.
That is such a good point.
So important to remember.
Yeah. What about economic abuse? Did this another thing that comes up in like intimate personal, intimate partner violence?
Let's talk about that. It's a good point.
And domestic violence, where it's like, now I'm going to control your finances. And at least in our like society, that's heavily capitalistic society, like you need finances in order to survive. Like I have to have money to buy groceries and to get shelter and XYZ. And so if I control that thing, then I'm controlling your access to basic needs.
That's a good point and interesting. And in the world of the Hunger Games, I wouldn't say it's necessarily straight capitalistic, but it is.
I mean, I would say it's actually capitalism to the extreme.
Oh, it's a good point. Okay.
Right? Like I would say it's like way beyond the same capitalism that our society is, where like the districts are the workers. Right. And the capital are all the people that are benefiting from the work
Like
of the
1%
workers.
or whatever,
They're
or
like
the
the
wealth.
entire
They're literally the
capital is the
1%, yeah.
1%. Right.
Yeah.
And so in terms of economic abuse, I don't think it's like one person telling one person, I'm controlling your finances, but all of District 12 is poor.
Well, and not
Yeah.
just that, like think about like the tesserae. I don't know if I'm saying that. I always read it and never know if I'm saying it. Remember the tesserae. Like, so I don't know if you remember this from the book or from the movies or anything like that, but like generally you get whatever you can make. You know, you work in the coal mines, you work in the shop, you're a merchant class or whatever.
But like, so like low economic choice, like low
yeah,
choice.
there's low choice in your job.
Yeah.
And that's by design to keep people in line for sure. But then you can, if you are down on your luck or whatever, you can put your children's name, or your child can go put their name in this like, you know, raffle so that you can get grain and like rice and whatever.
But then you're more likely to be reaped.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And that just builds every year. So,
Yeah.
right, the first year that you can go into the reaping, there's one thing with your name in it. The second year, there's two things with your name in it. But if you buy a tesserae, there's now two things your first year. And if you do it again the next year, there's
Yeah.
now four things
Yeah.
your next year.
Yeah.
So that's some of
And
the
it's-
economic
Yeah.
control as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing, I don't know, I'm trying to remember if it comes up in the book of what I've read so far, is like humiliation and degradation. So this is like,
Great
I'm going to shame
point.
you. I'm going to make you feel like the terrible person. And in real life, that sounds like name calling, like, again, speaking someone's values to them. Everybody hates you. Everybody thinks this thing about you.
Talking about you and spreading lies to other people that you
Yes.
know.
Yes. And so that you feel sort of, again, if you think about it, chipping away at your humanity, then that constant humiliation and constant shame breaks away your humanity. And your humanity is also the way that you rebel when things are misaligned from your values. right?
Yeah.
And so if you break down the humanity, then again, you affect the compliance. People are more likely to comply when they feel like they're a terrible, horrible human being.
This is such a good point with Haymitch. Not that we're talking about Haymitch right now, but specifically what President Snow and, extension, whatever his choice was, Haymitch thought, I'm the rascal. So like throughout the book, he's Drusilla, who is like the first kind of like escort or whatever, names him the rascal. And then he's like, yeah, I'm the rascal. And he uses that kind of like as a way to like push him through the games a little bit. Like, okay, what would a rascal do? How do I do this? And he's like, I'm making my own thing. And one of the other things that he also talks about is like his dad said, don't let them paint your poster. Or I can't think of the actual like term, but like he's like, you decide how they're going to view you.
Yeah.
And that's a common theme. Like you take control of your narrative. But what ends up happening is if he doesn't get control of his narrative, obviously at the end of the day, President Snow has control.
Yeah.
He has like the games are stacked against him. Like they change the footage. It makes him look not like a rascal, but just like a jerk. Like
Absolutely.
he goes off by himself. He abandoned his alliance that he said he had. He's not taking care of the people that he said he was going to. And it just like shamed him to no end kind of thing. So that was.
And shame is one of the most difficult emotions for us humans to be able to experience.
Shame is the worst.
And part of it's because like the reason why the emotion shame evolved is because we do need to live in community and in a collective. And shame comes up when it's like we have a chance to get kicked out of our community and our collective, right? So that's why shame exists. But then it's just like it's used as a power and control strategy. So that then, you are disconnected. And if that's the only person that you're in community with right now because you're being coerced into this situation, then the other option is being alone. It's just unsafe to be alone.
Mm-hmm. Especially in the arena.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But also like that shame idea comes up. And I wonder how you think about this, right? So President Snow uses how much Haymitch loves his brother and his mother and how much he loves Lenore Dove.
Yeah.
And says, well, if you follow all my rules, if you do all these things, then
they'll be safe.
They'll probably be fine.
Yeah.
But you still have to die.
Thank goodness when you die, they'll be able to live their life. And so Haymitch is kind of doing all of this with the belief that I need to die in order for my family and the person I love to live. And I mean, unfortunately, that's true because when he doesn't die, they do instead.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where, again, some of the coercion and threats, like they do become accurate fears. Mm-hmm. They're not always inaccurate fears, right? Sometimes they're accurate fears. If this person's threatening someone, I don't comply. Or don't comply 100%, or don't comply with a good attitude, or don't comply with then all of the rules like keep building on each other when you're in a power and control relationship. So it's like, oh, this was the rule, but now the rule is this, and now the rule
moving
is
the
this.
goalpost,
like moving the goalpost a bit too.
Absolutely.
Other thoughts about how power and control come up in this book?
The entire thing.
I mean, like just like from start to finish, right? Intimidation, right, is one thing that we haven't talked about yet. But President Snow is just like who he is intimidating, and then he makes like specific threats. So can you talk about how intimidation shows up in relationships?
Yeah. So again, we can think about society as a whole, or like this society that we live in, when we think about who holds all of the power and like the groups who have power, then they can use intimidation and that privilege. That's the other thing we haven't talked about too, is like using privilege. If I'm in a higher power position and then I use that power to exploit, oppress the people below me, right? You're fueling the system of power and control. And so, yeah, I mean, again, all power control does is sort of break down your sense of your own values and how you want to show up in the world and how you want to contribute to the world and what you want to do with your life and what makes your life meaningful. And so that gets really hard when you're under the umbrella of coercive control. Although there were many, many times where Haymitch did have behaviors that were congruent with his values, even under the umbrella of coercive control. And that's where some like the human resiliency and the human spirit can still find ways, even if it's like small, little pieces of rebellion that can kind of keep people going and keep people surviving in some of these situations.
That's a great.
I wonder about that. Like, I think sometimes Haymitch thought that he had control, or he was fighting to have control, or he believed that he was making a choice. And maybe he was making a choice that was congruent with his values, but it was a forced choice, right? He didn't really have control in the situation.
Yeah. Sometimes we call this mafia choice, like do this or die. Yeah. Well, if those are the only two choices, usually humans err on the side of survival.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do the thing in order to survive. But then what perpetrators do, though, is they come back and say, well, you had a choice.
Right.
But remember, choice involves consent. And there is no consent within coercive control.
So all the people that Haymitch killed, all the things that he did, are they like, is he right to beat himself up?
They were actions that he had that were misaligned with his values, and that's why he has so much internal suffering, is because they were misaligned from his values. But they were still happening under the umbrella of coercive control. Now, like, how much responsibility does that person take versus the system, the perpetrator, the society take? That's, we're still navigating all of that, of how we think about that in humans, especially in justice systems and, like behavioral consequences and those type of things. Yeah. So there's no clear answer. But we do talk about sort of like justified versus unjustified shame. And Haymitch may have some very justified shame because he had behaviors that were incongruent with his values. And so then you have to face the music. You have to process the reasons why you made those choices. You have to deal with the emotions that come.
So I know we have to end soon.
Yeah.
Right? But I want to talk about this a little bit. I think that a lot of what Haymitch has is unjustified shame.
Yeah.
Right? So when we talked about Ampert before, and when he went to try to save Ampert, but it was too late.
Yeah.
Right? And so he feels responsible for Ampert's death when...
But like, literally, Snow had him marked the whole time, and Beatty knew it and told him that. Like, it's like, this is
the one
unjustified.
Where the robot squirrels got in?
Yeah,
the robot squirrels.
Yeah.
Squirrels?
And like, the thing is like, they're like, she said it's like he was marked, he was reaped basically illegally. Like, he was like forcibly reaped, and he was going to die. And Beatty warned Haymitch and was like, he's dead.
Yeah, he's gone. This is it.
I'm warning him already. Like, so he has no, like, it was just going to happen. And I think it's so sad for Haymitch.
It's so sad. And also I think the unjustified shame and the justified shame just kind of piled up on each other. Although, again, it's hard to even say it's justified shame when it's such an umbrella of coercive control. They are forced into this situation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't choose to go into this situation. He was forced into this situation from, again, decades and decades of intergenerational psychological coercion.
And President Snow.
And President Snow.
Yeah, and from President Snow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or from President Snow's predecessors. Do you know anything about?
I mean, no, it's President Snow.
It's Snow. It's just.
I mean,
he
made the decision to.
The Hunger Games were around before
started.
him. The Hunger Games were there before President Snow.
10 years before him.
But like literally only 10 years before him. And then he took over really, really soon on.
Yeah.
And he is the reason that all of this power and coercion exists, right? He is the one that said, we need to treat them nicely. He's the one that said we need to give them mentors and make them feel like they have a chance to win.
Occasional indulgences.
Yes. Right, exactly. He's the one that said we need to create stories for them so that people are interested and want to see them win.
See how that's like minimizing the... You can't say like, oh, we're going to put these kids in a murder bath and you're going to enjoy it. You're going to watch it, right? Like you can't... People aren't going to go along with that. But if you paint it up a little bit and you do some of this marketing, then people are much more likely to, again, sort of have things that are incongruent from their values.
Which is the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Yeah.
That is literally that whole
That is
book.
that
We're
book,
not
yeah.
talking about today, but yes.
Which
that
is also a very hard read.
Unjustified shame. So, like, the strategy to deal with unjustified shame is to let go of the unjustified shame or to put it on the person who has created the situation and not holding on to it. When it's justified shame, you want to face the music. You want to try to repair. If you can't repair to that direct person, you want to contribute to society in a different way, which actually Haymitch does a bit later on when he's helping Katniss and
I mean,
Peeta
like,
kind
as a
of-
mentor, he's coerced into that too.
He's coerced into
Right.
that too, but he's still finding some ways to kind of help them cope with the coercive situation. So it's letting go of the unjustified shame, facing the music, and repairing for the justified shame.
Which he doesn't do until Mockingjay.
That's
He
correct.
really doesn't.
He really doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he experienced so much, right? Like,
Yeah.
again, the unjustified shame, just to like get this like nailed down, right? His mom and his brother die in a house fire. His girlfriend is killed.
By
And-
President Snow.
By President Snow. Both of those things
Yeah.
by President
That
Snow.
shit ain't on him.
It's not his fault.
It's not his shame to carry.
But,
But
he's
he
like,
only
I should have
carries for the
died.
rest of
If
his
I
life, for
had
sure.
just died,
then
they
everyone
would be
else
fine.
would be fine.
Well, and that's also like fortune telling, which can be real problematic for us as humans too, where it's like, well, we actually don't know
Right.
what would have happened.
Such a good point.
If you are the victim survivor of a relationship in power and control, try to find ways to connect to your own values, right? Trying to restore some of the things that were present that made your life meaningful before you were in the coercive control, and get help to get out of the coercive control situation. Because you can't do it alone.
And obviously, like Snow and Haymitch are an extreme version of
Yeah.
this, right? We talked about domestic violence, which is not an extreme version because it happens all the time, but it's also like an exaggerated version of this. But it happens in kind of all of our relationships from time to time. And so sometimes, like when we're in one of those more exaggerated or like intense versions of it, we have to get out. And sometimes if we're recognizing we're exhibiting some of that or our partner is exhibiting some of that, sometimes we can talk about it and get back onto
And change
an
the
even
behaviors related to that.
and become more even in our relationships.
Yeah. Okay. Should we end there?
I think it's a good place to end.
I think that's great. So
Yeah.
thanks so much for joining us today, Brandi. We're so glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
For extra content, check out our Patreon. The drink recipe will be there in the cocktail corner of sorts. I am a tad bit buzzed. Please continue. What were you going to say?
Content for you and our Patreon, some extra videos that you might like to see. Also, remember that next week we'll be continuing Sunrise on the Reaping, but starting next month, we'll be using our new book. We're reading Air by Saba Tahir. Air is H-E-I-R. So if you want to get a head start on next month's book club, go ahead and go to your local bookstore or library and check out our book. We're really excited to be reading it, and we're so happy that you joined us today. Thank you so much for joining our book club.
Like and subscribe or whatever the YouTubers say.
Click, whatever the
Also,
YouTubers
like
say.
and subscribe and tell your friends to join our podcast.
Yay! The synopsis of the book is so fucking disturbing.
It's so disturbing.
Thanks for coming to our podcast.
I will be using all of this. For bloopers.